I live in rural Pennsylvania, about 20 minutes outside of town. No streetlights, barely any cell reception, and just enough traffic on the backroads to feel safe, or so I thought. I've walked my dog, Jasper, down the same mile-long stretch of road almost every night for the past 5 years. Nothing ever happened. Until last October. It started on a Sunday. It was unusually warm for fall, but the leaves had turned already, so there was this eerie golden hue everywhere, like the world had been overexposed. It was about 8:30 p.m., almost dark, and I had my flashlight out just in case. Jasper, a big lazy golden retriever, was dragging behind me like usual. I had a podcast going in one ear and the other bud out to listen for cars. Standard routine. As we walked past the deep ditch by the old Miller property, the one with the collapsed barn, Jasper froze. Ears up. Tail stiff. Then he let out this low growl I've never heard from him before, not playful, not scared. Just focused. I pulled the earbud out. "What is it, buddy?" That's when I heard it too, rustling, wet movement in the ditch. I aimed my flashlight toward the sound, expecting maybe a deer or raccoon. What I saw still doesn't make sense. A woman. Crawling on her hands and knees through the mud and dead leaves at the bottom of the ditch. Her clothes were soaked, shredded, and she was covered in filth like she'd been out there for days. But she was crawling fast. Determined. And the way her limbs moved, it was wrong. Like she wasn't using her muscles correctly. Her elbows bent too far, her back hunched like a spider, and her neck craned upward toward us like she could smell us. I froze. Jasper didn't bark. He just stood there, hackles raised. Then the woman stopped and turned her head sharply, looking right at me. Her eyes caught the beam of my flashlight. They were wide, white, and unblinking. No expression. No pleading. Just awareness. I called out, stupidly, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She didn't answer. She just stayed crouched in the mud, watching me. And then she smiled. It wasn't normal. It wasn't reassuring. It was like she was pretending to smile. Her mouth stretched too far, her teeth yellowed and crooked like they'd been broken and healed wrong. And the moment she smiled, I mean the moment, she started crawling toward us. Fast. Almost running, but still on all fours. Her fingers dug into the mud like claws. I didn't think. I just ran. I yanked Jasper's leash and sprinted back toward my house, stumbling and almost dropping the flashlight. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. I swear I could hear her behind us, not footsteps, but the wet slap of her palms and knees on the pavement. We made it home in under 2 minutes. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and ran to the back to check the windows. Nothing. No sign of her. My heart was pounding so hard I felt nauseous. Jasper barked once, then lay down under the table, trembling. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went back out in the daylight. No trace of her. No footprints. No drag marks. No torn clothing. I checked the ditch, empty. I told myself it had to have been some strung-out drug addict or a prankster. That's what people do, right? They screw with the one guy who lives out in the woods. I even went online and searched for TikTok prank videos of people pretending to be creepy to mess with rural folks. But that smile. That movement. It wasn't a prank. I should have left it alone. But something kept gnawing at me. So, stupidly, I went back that night. Armed this time, flashlight, phone recording, and a hunting knife I barely knew how to use. Same time. Same stretch of road. Jasper refused to come with me. He just stood at the door and whimpered. So I went alone. The ditch was empty again. But something was different. There were scratches in the pavement. Long, parallel grooves, like fingernails. They started right at the edge of the ditch and led across the road. I followed them with the light and saw that they disappeared into the tree line. I stood there, frozen, listening. And then, very faintly, I heard a laugh. It was high-pitched, breathy, like someone trying to imitate a little girl. But it was wrong. Too slow. Like it had been recorded and played back at half speed. Eerie. That was enough. I bolted again. Things didn't get better after that. Over the next few nights, I started noticing strange things around the house. Wet footprints on the porch. The motion light clicking on when there was nothing there. One night, I swear I saw someone crouched in the edge of the woods behind my shed, just a silhouette, rocking slowly side to side. Then Jasper went missing. I woke up to find the back door open. He was gone. No sign of forced entry. I ran outside, screaming his name into the woods like a maniac. I searched all day. Found nothing. I was wrecked. I stopped going to work. Stopped sleeping. I left lights on all night, kept my gun loaded next to the bed. Every creak in the floorboards made me jump. Then, one night, I heard something scratching at the back door. Not knocking. Scratching, like long nails on wood. I turned off all the lights and peeked through the blinds. There she was. Standing on my porch. Still filthy. Still smiling. One hand resting on the glass, her head tilted at an impossible angle. Like she didn't know how to hold it up. And she had Jasper's collar in her hand. I don't remember grabbing the gun. I don't remember opening the door. I just remember firing, once, twice, 3 times. She didn't flinch. She laughed, that same horrible slow laugh, and walked backwards off the porch, disappearing into the dark like smoke. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen her since. But I know she's out there. Watching. The sheriff thinks I'm nuts. My friends think I'm having some kind of breakdown. They stopped answering my calls after I told them the whole story. I've moved my bed into the living room. I sleep with the lights on, door barricaded. I hear things scratching at the windows sometimes. Always just out of sight. And last night, I found muddy footprints in the hallway. Inside. I never heard the door open. Edit, next day. I stayed up all night with the gun in my lap. Nothing happened. But I swear I heard whispering coming from the vents. My dog is still missing. I can't sleep. I think she's waiting for me to go back outside. I think she wants me in the ditch. I used to do long-haul trucking before my health went south. This happened about 7 years ago on a run through northern Utah, Route 191, heading south toward the Arizona border. It was late fall, just past 1 a.m., and the stretch I was on was empty desert. Nothing for miles but rock, dust, and that thick, silent blackness you only get in the middle of nowhere. I was tired, but not dangerously so. I had a thermos of coffee, something trashy on AM radio, and my rig was humming along. Clear sky. Stars everywhere. Just another lonely night. And then I saw her. Just ahead, standing on the shoulder, thumb out. A hitchhiker. Now, I know what you're thinking, you don't stop for hitchhikers at night. Especially not in the middle of nowhere. But this wasn't some shady guy in a hoodie. It was a young woman. Maybe mid-20s. Slim, with long black hair and a pale blue dress that looked thin for the weather. She had no bag, no jacket, and no shoes. I slowed down instinctively, thinking maybe she'd been in a wreck or something. As I pulled up beside her, she stepped back a little, hand shielding her eyes from the headlights. I rolled down the passenger window. "You all right, miss?" She nodded slowly, then said something I didn't catch. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying or screaming. What was that? She leaned in closer to the window. Can I ride with you? Just down the road? She looked exhausted. Her skin was pale, not in a sick way, more like paper, and her lips were cracked. Her eyes were dark and sunken. And when I looked down at her feet, they were filthy. Bleeding, even. Something told me to say no. But I didn't. Yeah, I said. Hop in. She opened the door and climbed into the cab. Moved slowly, like her joints hurt. I noticed she didn't bring anything with her. No phone. No purse. She just sat down and folded her hands in her lap. We drove for a few minutes in silence. What's your name? I asked. She looked at me like she didn't understand the question. Then she said, it doesn't matter. Weird answer, sure. But I chalked it up to trauma. You from around here? Another pause. I was. A long time ago. I nodded slowly, keeping one eye on the road. Her voice was so soft it was barely a whisper, but there was a strange cadence to it, like English wasn't her first language, or like she hadn't spoken in a long time. Where should I drop you off? She turned her head toward the window. Just past the curve. Near the old fence. That didn't help much, but I figured I'd keep driving and look for anything that fit the bill. Maybe a mile later, I spotted a crooked wooden fence on the right side of the road. It was almost falling apart, half buried in sand. This it? I asked. She didn't answer. I looked over. She was gone. The seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. There was no sound, no movement. Just, gone. I slammed on the brakes and pulled over, heart pounding. I jumped out and ran around to the passenger side. Nothing. I checked under the cab. Looked down the road in both directions. She was nowhere. And then I noticed the seat. It was wet. Not just damp. Soaked. As if she'd been sitting in a rainstorm. But it hadn't rained all week. I touched it, ice cold, like she'd brought the temperature with her. My hands were shaking. I got back in the cab, locked the doors, and took off. No more stops. No more curious kindness. I drove straight through to Flagstaff without blinking. I didn't tell anyone for a few days. Then I mentioned it to a mechanic at the yard, old guy named Don who'd been running routes since the 70s. When I told him where it happened, his face went stiff. Was it a young woman? Pale? Blue dress? My blood ran cold. You've seen her? He nodded slowly. Not just me. Lot of drivers have. Same spot. Always around midnight to 2 a.m. Always asks for a ride. Always disappears by the curve with the fence. He told me the legend, said there'd been an accident out there back in the early 90s. A young woman driving alone, swerved to miss a deer, went off the road and rolled into a ravine. Took 3 days to find her. By then, it was too late. She'd crawled halfway back to the road before dying of exposure. They say she tried to flag down help, but no one saw her. They never found her shoes, Don said. Or her voice, I guess. I didn't drive that route again. But the story didn't end there. 2 months later, I found something in the cab of my truck. It was under the seat, a scrap of light blue fabric, torn at the edge. Looked like it had been ripped from a dress. It was stiff, soaked with something that smelled like rainwater and old flowers. I threw it out and tried to forget about it. But I kept dreaming about her. Same dream, every night for a week. I'm driving alone down Route 191. The stars are gone. No lights. Just endless black. She's in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. I try to speak, but I can't. I try to stop the truck, but the brakes won't work. Then she turns to me, eyes black, lips cracked open in a too-wide grin, and says, "You never stopped before." I always wake up drenched in sweat. I've been retired from driving for years now. But every once in a while, I check trucker forums and late-night threads. You'd be surprised how often her story comes up. Different drivers. Same girl. Some see her walking. Some find her sitting on guardrails, or curled up in ditches. One guy said he hit her, felt the thud, saw her fly into the road. But when he got out, nothing. No body. Just a blue ribbon lying on the asphalt. Another driver posted dashcam footage once. It got pulled down fast, but I saved a screenshot. You could just make out a figure standing on the shoulder in a blur of movement, long hair blowing in the wind. She's still out there. Still trying to get home. I bought my house in western North Carolina 3 years ago. Quiet neighborhood, decent price, and surrounded by dense woods on all sides. It's not far from Asheville, but it feels remote. Peaceful. It was the kind of place I thought I could finally breathe in. And I did, until 6 weeks ago. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was just a noise. A low, rhythmic thumping, like someone knocking softly from underneath the floor. I was in the living room watching TV. It was after midnight. I paused the show, thinking it might be the HVAC, but it wasn't that kind of sound. It came again. Thump. 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 Then silence. I live alone, no pets, no roommates. I even went outside with a flashlight, checked around the house. Nothing. I convinced myself it was pipes or wood settling and let it go. But it kept happening. Always late. Always when the house was quiet. Sometimes it would last for just a few seconds, 3 or 4 knocks. And sometimes I'd hear it for over a minute, irregular, like someone crawling around under the house and dragging something heavy. I decided to check the crawl space. I hate small spaces, but I had to rule it out. The entrance is a small wooden hatch on the side of the house, about 2 feet wide. I popped it open one afternoon and aimed a flashlight inside. Nothing. Just dirt, cobwebs, and some insulation. It was dry, no signs of animals or entry. No footprints. I figured maybe a raccoon had come and gone. But that night, the noise came back. Closer. Louder. A few days later, I noticed something even stranger. One of the floor vents in my bedroom was open. Like someone had removed the metal grate and set it aside. I hadn't touched it. I always keep those things screwed in tight because of dust and spiders. I went to screw it back down, but noticed the dust around the opening had been wiped away. There were clean drag marks leading up to it. Like something had been pushing up from underneath. I felt sick. I grabbed a flashlight, pulled the bed aside, and stuck my head down to peer into the vent. Just darkness. A shallow gap between floorboards and dirt. Then, just as I was about to pull back, I heard breathing. Slow. Raspy. Like someone exhaling through their teeth. I dropped the flashlight and backed away, heart hammering. I called animal control the next morning. I told them I thought there was a wild animal living under my house, maybe a fox or something bigger. They sent a guy out that afternoon. He crawled the entire length, came out dusty but calm. "There's nothing down there," he said. "No signs of nesting. No feces, no fur. No burrows. You're all clear." He even humored me by placing a motion-triggered trail cam under there. I checked it the next morning. One photo, timestamped at 2:11 a.m. It showed the open vent from underneath. And in the lower left corner, half of a human hand. Fingers long, dirty, splayed out in the dirt, like it was reaching up. No wrist. No arm. Just the hand. I showed it to the guy. He said it had to be a prank, maybe I faked it. When I told him I lived alone and didn't touch the camera, he got quiet and left. That's when the whispers started. It began with my name. Just once or twice, faint, like it was being spoken through a wall. Eli. Always around 3 a.m. Always coming from beneath the floor. Then came the dragging sounds. Not soft anymore. Loud. Like someone was pulling themselves, nails on wood, through the tight crawl space, inch by inch. I stopped sleeping. One night, in a half-delirious daze, I put my ear to the floorboards. What I heard still makes my skin crawl. A voice, barely above a whisper, but clear as day. You shouldn't have looked. I hired a contractor. Paid him cash up front to install a heavy-duty grate over every floor vent in the house, bolted tight. I also installed floodlights around the foundation, motion sensors, the works. For a few nights, the noises stopped. Then I noticed something far worse. The hatch was open. Not just unlocked, swinging open in the wind. And there, just inside the threshold, was a pile of dirt with finger marks raked through it. I shut and locked it, reinforced it with a steel bar, and put a camera on it. That night, the motion alert went off at 3:23 a.m. I watched the live feed with my heart in my throat. Nothing at first. Just stillness. Then, movement. A face. Just barely visible. Pressed against the inside of the hatch, looking out through the slats. Pale skin. Wide, cloudy eyes. Lips pressed into a bloody grin. Hair matted to the forehead like it was wet. It just stared at the camera. Then, slowly, it raised a hand. And pointed upward. Toward me. I called the police. They found the hatch sealed. No signs of tampering. No footprints. I showed them the footage. They said it looked like a compression artifact. I begged them to check the crawl space again. They wouldn't. Last week, I went to stay at a hotel for a few nights. I needed a break. I needed sleep. When I came home, the house smelled wrong. Like soil and rot. The smell of something dead left too long in the heat. I found handprints on the inside of the bedroom vent covers. Fingers pressing out. And something worse in the kitchen, tiny piles of dirt, not scattered, but arranged in shapes. Circles. Lines. Some kind of symbols. I didn't touch them. I didn't clean them up. I just locked myself in the bedroom and stayed up with the lights on. Now, it's in the walls. I hear it at night. Crawling. Whispering. Mimicking my voice. Last night I heard it call out from the hallway. Eli. I'm cold, let me in. But it was my voice. Same tone. Same rhythm. I didn't open the door. This morning, I found scratch marks on the inside of the bedroom window. Second story. I don't know what it is. It's not an animal. It's not a person. It's something that lives in the empty spaces of this house. Something that was here before me, and maybe before anyone else. It wants to be seen. It wants to come up. And I think the more I notice it, the stronger it gets. I haven't slept in 4 days. Last night, the bedroom vent cover was ripped off, bolts and all. I fixed it, but I know it'll come loose again. I keep hearing it whisper now, even when I'm awake. There's room for one more down here. Edit, 1:44 a.m. It's in the house. I heard the hatch slam open. I heard the floorboards creak. I'm hiding in the closet. I'm going to post this before it finds me. If anyone finds this, don't buy this house. Don't even look at it. Because once you do, it knows your name.